So we have Radical Motion. I'm going to go ahead and download the FBX. They continually update their AI, and so if you do a take like maybe 2 months down the road, you want to get it again, you can upgrade the AI processing of it, and it has better foot slippage controls, and it just looks a little bit better. So that's one thing to look out, is that the applied AI can be updated way after you've controlled it. And it looks like you tried to do foot lock, so that's good. Then maybe that was by default. And then let's go ahead and download the FBX. It'll be called radical underscore something something. Cool. And then let's see if I have a Ready Player Me character. Yes, that is that noise. All right, so let's open up Blender. And then thanks to Grant's efforts and Blender to help get everyone up to speed, we have a couple of steps for specifically the Ready Player Me that he put together, and I'm still working on this as a retargeting document as a whole. But a couple steps here is that these Ready Player Me, and some people are having the issue where the player looks like this, but when you retarget, the hands go up. That's because the character is like in a T animation, but the rest pose is actually here. So there's like a default state of the model, and we need to make that default state be this. So that's what we're going to show in Blender, which is called changing the rest poses. And this was funky, and this took Grant and I a good evening to do. But it's only 3 steps, so that's the good news. It's just not documented besides here. So you guys get this treasure trove of information. So in Blender, I'm going to load in that GLB file. Debatable whether or not I have to worry about converting to FBX. We'll just bring it in and see what happens. So downloads in that folder, and we got one already converted or renamed. Let's just bring them in. All right, so frame it with F, and then if I put it into viewport shading, we can see it has textures and everything looks nice, and navigate around. But he's in this kind of A pose, right? It makes it really natural to sculpt him this way, but it doesn't work as well for motion capture. And if I come down to this little picture of a person doing the running man, this is the where I can see that the rest position is here, but the pose position is they're both the A pose. Actually, I know what I want to do. I want to import the FBX and see. So if I bring in this T-pose I got from Mixamo, give them a second to let the colors come in. There it goes. And we'll see. Let me just do it from scratch, then this is being a little bit of a pain in the butt. Can't hurt to review. New. Just trying to use my refuse from a previous week. Mix. Log in. That's fine. All right, so here's this fella. Let's put the T-pose. And then download it with skin. And there we're off and running to the races. This one's now called FBX_1. This was be called Mr. Man. Okay, now back to Blender, folks. So we're going to import them, and I'm going to check off 2 little things underneath the armature of the bones. I'm going to make sure that the bones are all connected, and that the bones are oriented like down the hierarchy. There's this weird thing, especially the radical data, where the bones are represented by sticking straight out, and I just by default kind of turn these on. So we're going to import this one, and we're going to say I need to choose something. Let's go down and find folder, man, and then check those boxes. Import. And now here we are. So you're in a T-pose, but when I go down to the armature, the rest pose is here, right? And that's kind of hidden, and that's what we're trying to get to for like the last 5 minutes, is that this is where we want it, and this is where it actually is, and that's where secretly this process has been making the things over-exaggerate. We want to put the T-pose, so let's put it back into the T-pose, and then this is actually a collection of a bunch of meshes, right? What's unique about Ready Player Me is I might have shown you, they actually already have facial animation on them. Like if I go to the head, it's got these what are called shape keys or blend shapes or morph targets or whatever. So we already have facial capture stuff, and we need to kind of not destroy that. So this step is to preserve that facial capture data. You'll see it pop a little bit, but it'll still be fine in the end. So we're going to right-click and say, oh, works at home, so we'll do it this way. This way, convert to mesh. And if you watch the nose and mouth, it'll do like a quick little pop, or the neck or whatever, but that's fine. So we moved on. Actually, the eyes look a little recessed now. We didn't notice that. We did it before. Anyway, we're going to retarget it. We'll be fine. And then now we need to go to the pose, to the bones, put it in pose mode. There's all these modes, right? We can see the objects. We can actually edit the objects. And now we want to adjust the pose. There you go. And with the pose selected, we say, please apply this as our rest pose. All right. Now the problem with this is that our pose is it's not actually attached to the skeleton. We need to reapply it. If we looked at the let's take a look at this thing, the viewport display. There you go. So now you can see the bones in there. I'm gonna go totally off the rails. I'm gonna select this bone. Can I move that back? Try to see those eyeballs can get in there. I'll do some other time, but I'm just curious. Okay, they're not connected. Perfect. And then you can see that what I was basically trying to show you is that these aren't connected, right? So if I select all my mesh, go back, and then select the armature last. Let's put object mode. Do the meshes, and no. Yes.
What are the bones that are coming out of the top of the head?
I don't know what this top one is going to actually end up doing. These are all about like eye twists, the ones in the front. We could, once we do the next step, we can give it a spin and find out. Okay. So all we need to do is, now that we've selected all the meshes first and then shift selected the armature, yeah? I did that first. Yeah. Yeah, so I converted the mesh, and the eyes actually, the head moved forward and the eyes popped back a little bit. So maybe a cleanup we do for face tracking day. And then object, and then underneath parent, armature to form, right? Yeah. So now, if we come back to our bones, we should be able to move them around. Oh, Grant. All right. So this is our pose, and this is our rest pose. All right. So that's where we want to get to. Those 3 steps. Make sure that now we're in a T pose. I put a link in the syllabus to the Rococo plugin. Rococo is one of these suits you wear that's called an inertial suit. I went for still as the fantastic guy dancing with his shadow on the front page. We'll get into more about inertial suits, but it's basically like wearing a phone on every one of your joints. It has little IMUs, like gyroscopes that are on every joint. And they have a live streaming a plugin, but it also does retargeting. It's free. So I put a link in the syllabus to this, and you can download it and grab it. I think you might have to sign. In fact, I'm sure you have to sign up for it. Download link, and just download it. It's going to give you a zip file. And I'm now just going to show you how to install a plugin, or I guess they're called add-ons, to Blender. So in Blender, you go to Edit, Preferences. Right down halfway is a thing called add-ons, and then you just take all these zip files, the zip files you want to bring in, and you say install add-on. Right? You don't have to unzip it, keep it zipped up, and then what it does is basically it unzips it itself and then puts it in a file path that Blender knows where it is. It's like it's a Python file. I am not going to do that because I already have it installed, but when you're here to enable it, you need to search for it and then make sure that it's checked on. And then way over here, hidden behind this tiny little carrot that took me forever to find, are all your plugins. Right, so there they are. And Rococo's right here. We're not doing live streaming from a Rococo suit, so we don't need that one. So we don't care about networking, but we do want to do retargeting. Basically it says, look at our source and look at our target. So our source is the motion capture. We're getting that data, right? So motion capture is a source, and our target is this character. So let's also import you, or representation of your movement. Not really you. And that was with my Firefox. That's probably here. And there you go. I am also going to do, well, here, I'll show you what happens when I don't do this automatic bone orientation. And I bring it in. I absolutely hate that. It makes no sense to me. I don't know why data comes in that way. So I'm going to undo and bring it in with that checked off, just so I can show you what it is. Armature. Now it looks like a real thing, and you see all these keyframes at the bottom. The keyframes are indicating that yes, there's a mocap per frame, and it's an animation. And just like we saw last week, frame 0 is a T-pose. So let's select the source. 1 second. The source again is this mocap data, and then the target is this Ready Player Me character. And then you have to build a bone list. It's a total this to that thing. They might be completely named different things, like the Unreal Engine mannequin that you've seen for the third person. Its upper arm is called clavicle, right? And you have to say, oh no, clavicle actually means upper arm. And it can be very tedious sometimes to do retargeting because you have to manually create these columns. This thing tries to automatically build this list. I click it there. We see that in general, hips equals hips, up leg. So they pretty much have the same bone naming convention. Sometimes spine always starts with spine 1, some people start with spine 0, some people start with spine. And you just get kind of familiar with these things as you go through. Looks good to me. And so ideally when this plugin was fully functioning, you could just say current, and it would understand that it was pulling the T-pose, not having to do the rest pose. But we have a bunch of blend shapes in our face, and it doesn't know how to automatically do that process until we figured out this workaround. Or I should say Grant figured out this workaround. So you do retarget motion. If it's working, you'll see these little numbers come up in a little square. There you go. Me and my shadow. All right? So this is already baked. You don't have to bake it. That's part of the process of this. So I can put this back over here. Now just to prove that the part is baked, I can just delete it, and we still have our motion. All right. So you're having a lot of one thing that Maya products do and that Blender does do is it doesn't resize the animation track for the length of how much motion you have. So you might need to to futz around with that or figure out how long the take is. All right, so you can make sure you can see all of everything. It looks like it's like 400 frames or something. No. Like 290. Just so you know. And that's how you navigate that little timeline. Oops. Yeah, whatever. Cool. And so let's just export. Right, the motion capture data is completely gone. And then we can export as FBX. And then back here at the bottom, we want to make sure. So we're just, even though we're exporting the mesh, because that's how Blender does it at this point, we're only going to be importing the data. So I don't care about making sure that the faces are smooth or anything like that, because we already have this character hopefully already in Unreal. So we're going to just make sure that it has the bake animation on here now. I'm going to leave everything as is, and then just, we don't have to worry about, again, embedding textures and all that kind of stuff, because we're just using the data. And I can name this the name of the animation take, because that's what the name of the file will be in Unreal. Cool, and then download. So fine. Give it a second. It's still chucking away. Yeah.
So if you want to try to save like motion capture data on another avatar, you have to redo everything because you're delayed it.
If I want to take the data from this character and put it on another character,
Yes.
yes, I can use this character to retarget to another character if I want to.
Oh, okay.
Yep. That's really fine. Again, what you're doing though is you're taking the source data, which is of a certain scale that's more representative of the performer's skeletal structure, and you're applying it to a characterized, but like a cartoonish character here of different proportions. So it's like the game of telephone, where you're now taking of one bone proportions, putting it to another bone proportions, and then to another bone proportions. If you ever do anything really exact or scientific, you always want to use that source motion capture data, because that's going to be the most accurate to what you captured. Right? That's what you're paying the money for, so you want to make sure you're continuing to go back to that source. But yes, you can infinitely retarget from one to another, and it's super fun to do, short fat characters to tall skinny characters, and see how they all like dance in different steps and stuff. And some people saw Maya, when you have the avatar 10 times bigger, it's fun to watch, like the little tiny mini me going around with the big, Dr. Evil. So it's fun stuff. So obviously we know how to import. We don't actually import the skeletal mesh. We just import the data onto the skeletal mesh in Unreal. And this is we have now 2 ways of retargeting. Before the end of this semester, we'll have 3 ways.
So
Yeah.
when I was trying this yesterday, and there was a size difference, but what was happening is the make human shape that I imported, it wasn't like you selected armature, and the whole body is selected.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was when I select one, it's only one part of the body, like the arms are different and the body.
Were you selecting within this little down arrow?
They were split, so it wasn't that they were all within that folder as well. I tried minimizing it.
Okay. So you can drag things in the folder. Otherwise, we have to figure out, maybe it was an import setting. Was it a Ready Player Me character that you were doing?
It was from make human.
So Make Human, of course, has a little bit of chaos element to it. So we just have to look at it at a case-by-case basis. That's the pains of being able to use Shrek ears. Any other questions about this little thing? All right, then I'm going to kind of stop recording and just have this as an encapsulated video file for later if you guys want to try Blender. Again, I've been wanting to switch everything.